Simulcast live from Makaku Television Cable Channel 55, Studio B, and 88.5 FM KNUQ Radio at Halfway to Hell Plaza in downtown Kahului on the beautiful island of Maui. It's time once more for KNUQ Live. And now here's the man who makes it all possible, Shaggy!
Actually turned on microphones and stuff. You're watching Channel 55. I almost said you're watching 88.5 FM. No, you're listening to 88.5 FM. You're watching Channel 55. And if you're wondering why I am having such a hard time today, ladies and gentlemen, over the course of the last decade of my life, I was a radio personality. And when you go into a radio market, you always try to learn who the movers and shakers are. When I first came to Maui back in 2003, this guy was pretty much on the threat map from day one. And the reason why is because not only does he run killer rock shows, but now is the host of a very killer AM talk show. Ladies and gentlemen, the venerable Johnny A.
Nice to be here, Shag. Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's a little different now that we're not in the same building. It's a little harder to see each other, but for people that work with us, it's actually better.
Yeah. It's interesting being on TV instead of radio. I got to make sure I don't pick my nose or anything.
See, that's the funny thing. From years and years of being a radio host, we all have our tics and stuff in the studio, and really, this is like the first time we've had a camera on you while you're in the radio studio. So what is the one tick that you're worst about when you're on the air?
One tick?
Yeah.
As far as, I have word crutches that from time to time that I have to rid myself of. The word
oh,
for instance.
Good. People don't understand that in our line of work, when you say the word that's like saying, please fire me and replace me with somebody younger and prettier.
I was doing a show a few years ago, a rock show called The A-Train, and I listened. I used to record it, as we do, because we're professionals. Mm-hmm. And I heard myself say about 2,000 times. I got so angry that I printed the word on a sheet as big as I could and put it in front of me for the next show and forced myself to stare at it as I did the radio show, and it worked.
Wow.
It worked. But every now and then the creeps back in.
Well, let's go ahead and just get into the interview part of this, because like I said, we've worked together in the past. Mm. This is the first time I've actually been able to sit down and grill you. Yeah. Now, you are former military, so we will adhere to Section 3 of the Geneva Conventions. I want your name, your rank, and your serial. And then that'll be it for the interview, and we'll go home early, and me and Johnny will be hanging out at the bar. No, let's start off with where you're from originally.
Well, I was born in Seville, Spain, actually.
Seville, Spain?
Only lived there for the first 2.5, 3 years of my life. Father was in the Air Force.
Oh.
So very few memories of España. Parents moved to the D.C. area, Maryland, which is where I spent years 3 through 18. Columbia, Maryland. It's halfway between Washington, D.C. and Baltimore.
And being that close to the United States government, do you think that's what made you say, screw this, I'm going as far away as I can with still staying in the same country?
Well, I moved around a lot from Maryland before I made it to Maui, but certainly by the time I was 18, I wanted to fly the coop and see all I could, which is one reason why I joined the Marine Corps.
And once you were into the Marines, were you still thinking, man, this was a great idea?
My whole childhood, I wanted to be a Marine, and I thought I'd be a Marine for 20 or 30 years. After I got in, I said, this is a great idea for 3 or 4 years. I'll do my time, and then I'll get out, be a PFC, a proud effing civilian.
Now, where did you do time? Like, what was your base?
I went to basic training at Parris Island, South Carolina, and I was in the artillery, so I went to artillery school in Camp Pendleton, California. I've been stationed at 29 Palms in the Mojave Desert. I've been stationed in Okinawa, which is about 500 miles south of Japan. Did some time in the Philippines during the Revolution in 1986. Cold weather training at Mount Fuji. I spent about 7 months at Quantico, Virginia. Luckily, and for 4 years, I got to travel a lot.
Wow. And is there any one point during those travels where you're like, I think I want to go someplace tropical after this? Like, where did the idea post-service come to transplant? Because I understand, being from the mainland, you get used to a certain pace of life. And then coming to Maui, it's a different pace altogether.
Well, I really enjoyed my year in Okinawa, which is a tropical island, which is similar climate to Maui. Mountains are smaller. It's a little cooler, but not much. And fast forward to the end of 1984, I got, let me turn that to stun.
The one thing we never forget in the studio, phones to silent.
At the end of 1984, I was living in Ohio, Toledo, Ohio. If you've been to Toledo, then you understand why I wasn't too keen on it. And I was offered a job in Maui. And people said, why would you move to Hawaii sight unseen? I had done a year in Okinawa. I was living in Toledo. So the answer, of course, was yes.
So this is the funny part for me, because you were an artillery guy in the Army, and typically people that go into communications and stuff post a military career went through some sort of either an officer's communications school or communications relays. I mean, you're going from let's just blow stuff up to let's get on the microphone. How did you make that jump in logic?
Well, I got into radio through the sales end. I was living in Memphis, Tennessee from 90 to 94. And I got a job selling advertising at a radio company in Memphis, Tennessee. And I ended up being very good at it. Radio was something I'd always been interested in as a kid. Really enjoyed it. I enjoyed selling it. I enjoyed learning how advertising works, working with business people. In fact, I did so well in Memphis and made a name for myself, I was actually headhunted by a company that brought me to Toledo. And I got a nice job offer there. I was in Toledo about 7 months, and as I mentioned, wasn't really keen on it. And no offense to my friends that might be watching and listening that are from Toledo, but Toledo really wasn't for me. So when the Maui offer came through, and I think it was November or December of 1994, I was ready for Maui at that time. For sure. So no, the Marine Corps didn't prepare me for being on the radio, but when I came to Maui, you know how it is in a big city, a radio station might have 40, 50, 60 employees, everybody doing a different job. But here on Maui, if you work in radio, as you know, you wear 4 or 5 different hats.
Yeah, it's instead of 40 people for one job, it's one person for 40 jobs.
That's correct. So I got the opportunity in Maui. I think my first show was in 1995, but it was an easy opportunity just to get sponsors and anoint myself my own shows. My first show was a sports talk show on KMVI 550 AM. That was 1995. I think the show was called Nuts on Sports.
Wow.
And 1998, 99, I did a rock and roll show on Saturday nights called The Bone Jar, which ended up being very popular. And then through the 2000s to now, I've done, I think, 3 different shows called The A Train. I did a show called Monkey Spankers, basically rock and roll shows and just having fun.
So this is my question, because a lot of people when they go from the sales side into the entertainment side, it's through some sort of act of either A, subterfuge, where they've tricked and lied their way into the studio, or B, and it sounds like this is kind of your experience, B, you happen to be the most capable person at the time, and they're just like, we need you, throw you behind the mic. Which one of those was your first experience?
My first experience was I did so well selling the advertising. I'm making all that money for the owners.
So they figured, since you're paying the light bills, you should be able to do anything you want.
If I come to them and look them in the eye and say, I want to do a radio show, they say, okay. Wow.
I mean, at this point, you're King Johnny.
I don't know about that.
Well, it does. Let's see here. The easiest way to say this is for the most part, if you're in a sales thing, they try to kind of keep you away from representing yourself on the air, because there's certain concerns that you might be biased towards certain clients and biased against uncertain clients. As long as I've known you and as long as I've listened to your show, you're kind of a everybody always eats at the same table kind of mentality, even on your show. Is it hard when you're thinking in the sales world to go on and then be on the presenter side, where you're presenting stuff that maybe you didn't sell from people that you didn't meet.
It's a natural transition. Being on the radio is something I truly enjoy. Friends have said that they enjoy the shows. I really appreciate compliments, and it feels natural. As a kid, 7, 8, 9 years old, I'd lay awake late at night just listening to talk radio. I really enjoyed the genre of radio. And in Memphis, when I got my first radio sales job at the time, I was selling for a collection agency. Yeah, it's not sexy, not exciting. And I said to myself, I have the gift of being able to sell and work with business owners, but I want to sell something that motivates me. So I came up with the idea of radio in Memphis, saying, you know what, I love radio. I'd love to be involved, so I'll go sell that. And it worked out very well. And then again, moving to Maui, I was able to make that easy transition to start doing my own shows.
So would you say, because I just heard it in your last, would you say that your driving thing is keep it sexy?
Driving thing for life?
For your career, because it seems like you were in a job where you were not so sexy. Then you kind of wanted to move up to the pumps, and then now
I think you can only be your best at something if you enjoy it.
Yeah, and
you can only be really, really good at something if it's something that you enjoy. I think that we should all gravitate to things that we enjoy, and if you can translate things that you enjoy into making a living, it's one of the secrets of life.
Well, you're really good at this, so that means that you must really enjoy this line of work.
I love doing the radio shows, and I don't think of my radio shows as part of my job, even though technically it is. And I sell sponsorships, and sure, the fact that people know me helps me sell more advertising. But when I show up to do one of my shows, it's like I'm showing up to play softball or hockey or paintball. These are hobbies of mine. But I look at my radio shows at the same way I look at going to play in a softball tournament. I do them for fun. Yeah. If I didn't have fun being on the air, there's no way I'd do it.
And that's one of the funny things is because I've known you from the past in the rock shows, and now you've started doing talk shows. Now, let's just be honest here. I'm going a rock DJ doing a talk show. There is no way in hell this is going to work. But your show is almost addictive to listen to.
Thank you very much.
I mean, you have a great cast of characters. Now, some of them are clients, some of them are friends and stuff. When did you start saying, you know what, let's just take my whole crazy observational style, grab a couple of friends, and let's leave the music behind and just talk?
It's been a long time. I've always wanted to take the step up to talk radio. I think talk radio takes a lot more work and a lot more attention and focus than simply you telling a couple off-color jokes and then playing Led Zeppelin. Don't get me wrong, I love the rock shows. I'll do another rock show at some point, but I always wanted to take the next step up. And I think talk radio is something that I really love and enjoy, and I like to espouse opinions. I love to take phone calls from local folks. And I like to surround myself with people that can make me laugh, and with people that I feel are intelligent and have a lot to say. So when I pick and choose folks for my shows, it seems like I'm just grabbing anybody, but I'm being very careful, actually. I want to get people who are loquacious and people that are funny, and it works. So if I'm off, they're on.
I like this. See, I should have more characters on this show so that days when I'm just feeling crappy, I'm like, you guys, just do the show. I'm done.
Well, talk about talented. I mean, you're fantastic, and you're fun to watch, and you're fun to listen to. So it really boils down to what you want, Shag.
Well, see, the thing is you've already got booked on the show. You don't have to kiss the ass anymore.
Are you saying you need an Ed McMahon here?
I've thought about that. And this is one of the things that I like about your show. Typically, when it comes to doing multiple personalities inside of a studio, I am one of the ones that is either a disruptive or, the class clown that just kind of poo-poos everything else that everybody else says. You have a nice working chemistry with whoever you're paired with, and I can only assume that came from years and years and years of practice. Either that or the Marines have taught you some stuff that even I wish I should know. How do you find your comfort when you're doing your show where it's like, hey, let's just relax?
Well, one of the things I did learn in the Marine Corps is when you're in charge that you need to delegate. And when I'm doing either a rock or a talk show and I have my co-hosts, I try not to make it about me. And I try to give all my guests and my co-hosts enough rope to hang themselves with. So I try to give them a lot of mic time. I try to just kind of maintain the show and keep it flowing. But I don't try to make the show about me. I try to make it about us.
Well, this is kind of funny because when you say about us, you can say that the A-Train show, the rock show, has actually launched a couple of other people into the radio world.
Yeah.
If you look back as far as, post Maui life, how many people would you say have came through and are now still out there?
Well, my Ace of Ace's Radio Rehab, which was a really popular heavy metal show that's been a couple of different radio companies here. I got Ace's start. Spike does a great show on another company, a rock show. I got Spike his start in radio. If I see talent and someone's interested and there's an opportunity, then I try to get that person the opportunity to be on the air.
So you're not, at the end of the day, you're not going, this young punk's going to get my job.
No. No. There's plenty of airtime for everyone, for sure, especially here on Maui. I mean, if someone's talented and shows promise, it's good to get them on the air.
Yeah, and really, when we talk about like the industry here and things, you have maybe 4 owners on the whole island of, I think, 17 different radio stations and television stations, if you lump us in with it. There is, as far as being a small community and a drive in the community, there is kind of an open door here with media, would you say?
If you have talent.
Yeah. Well, I take that back because I don't have talent and I have this show.
You're modest, and I'm going to tell you do have talent. How's that?
No.
If you didn't have talent, you wouldn't have your own TV show.
Actually, I think I caught them at a time that they were really desperate. But no, the thing is, too, is like when we're talking about like getting into media jobs and things like this, would you ever recommend somebody go the route that you did and say, hey, why don't you try into sales a little bit, and if that suits you, see how the microphone feels?
No.
Really?
Radio sales is very difficult.
Tougher than the Marines?
In a way, yeah.
Wow.
I think that sales, just like being on the air, if you don't have the knack for it, it's just not something you should try. I mean, in every industry, people want to go gravitate into sales because that's where the money is made. But it's just a very difficult and demanding job, and it can be a real pain. Now, I've turned friends away that wanted to get into radio sales. I've looked them in the eye and said, man, you don't want to do this. This is hard.
Did you ever give them the Arlie Ermy treatment when you turned around and just started yelling at them until they broke down and walked away?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't do that.
At least on the first attempt.
Maybe if they insisted. As far as people trying to break in, it's, as well as I do, Maui's a tough market to break in because there's not a lot of spots available for people. And it might actually be relatively easy to get a sales job at one of the radio companies. And if our friends are watching and listening or thinking of doing it and you really want to, I'd say go for it. But it is a very difficult job to learn and then to do consistently.
Yeah, and also I would like to say that at the end of the day, have a good therapist.
Yeah. It's funny, we love radio, we love media, but it can be a real frustrating career.
Oh God, it totally is. But the thing is that you meet great people along the way, and like I said, listening to your show, it seems to be this cavalcade of just interesting Maui people. Now, if I had to ask you, like, to really nail down an influence for how you run your show, is there any show in your memory that you can go back and be like, that's the guy that I wanted to do a show like?
For talk radio, as a kid growing up, I always listened to Larry King.
Wow.
Now, Larry King does his show like you do. He did it. But you may be too young to remember his radio show.
No, I'm not that young.
Okay. Well, Larry King did a fantastic radio show. I grew up on the East Coast. I think it was like 11 to 5 or midnight to 6 or something on the East Coast. He did it all by himself. And I listened to it religiously for a long time. And he's one of the reasons why I always wanted to do radio. He didn't do the committee thing. I guess I got that from doing the rock shows for a few years and having the cast of characters. Mm-hmm. I really felt like I could make that work in a talk format. I can't think, except for, morning shows around the country that I've heard where they have different people chiming in. The thing is that you have to be able to manage it, and you have to be able to get a system where people don't talk over each other. On my show, the A-Train, on Fridays, we have a simple system of when someone's talking and you want to talk next, you just raise your hand.
Oh, so you have like the talking stick kind of therapy thing.
We tried the
on.
talking stick, but it didn't really work. People were getting whacked with the stick.
I'm imagining that's when Trish visited the show.
Yeah.
Just, I'm talking. Yeah.
Trish is another talent. She's good.
Well, okay. Speaking of talk, because this is something that just grips me as far as when I'm listening to your show, and not a lot of people would know this if they haven't checked out the A-Train now on the talk side of things. You guys tackle some pretty serious issues from time to time that are local, and then you'll go national, and in the meantime there's all these little fun bits. Who is the person at the end of the day that says, you know what, guys, this is what we're talking about? Because there's some very big issues that you guys bring up and discuss on your show.
In that regard, I am a dictator. I research stories on Friday afternoon, early afternoon before the show, and I get all the different local and national stories that I want to cover. I invite the guests. I actually set out a timeline of when we're going to do things and how, and I distribute it when the other hosts show up. I think that a talk show with multiple people needs one guy to say, this is what we're doing and this is how we're doing it. And the other hosts love it, because they walk in, it's organized, they know what we're doing. I read a little blurb, be it a story about cane burning or a story about the Middle East. And then after I read that blurb, then the hands start raising and we start talking.
Yeah, and it seems like it's very, very controlled, at least from the radio thing, but inside it looks like a third grade class. Me-yanks.
Well, that's what I'm looking for. Exactly right. I'm looking for, it's a Friday afternoon show. I think Friday afternoon people are maybe in the best mood they are in the whole week because they're about to be done with work. They've got 2 days off, and we do tackle serious issues, but we also try to have fun, and we give a lot of prizes away, and we're just trying to be a companion for folks on Friday to sort of ease them into their weekend.
Well, I mean, we've got like 7 minutes here before the break, so can I bring up, like, what was your biggest topic that you think so far this year that you've had on the show?
Our biggest topic as far as most controversial?
Most controversial, I would say, because we know usually the biggest topic is how awesome is Johnny A.
I don't know about that. We talked about the missing women, and obviously that's a very emotional issue. A lot of people are scared. A lot of people are worried. They feel, some people feel the police aren't doing a good enough job in trying to solve these crimes, and that was a serious issue. We also occasionally talk about cane burning and GMOs, and people seem to get really emotional and charged about these issues.
Well, I'm imagining if you're talking about cane burning and my name is David and I'm sitting in your studio, I'm going to be a little concerned. One of your co-hosts is David Kane from time to time.
Right.
So if you're mentioning cane burning, I imagine he gets a little nervous.
I make sure that he understands it's sugar cane and not David Kane that's being burned.
But these issues, the funny thing is we talk about how delicately we have to approach these on the talk shows. Have you ever had a subject where you guys are like fully committed before show, hey, let's go this. You start doing the story and you're like, you know what, maybe we should just back off.
We had a social media question we put out, and it seemed like 99% of the folks out there got it, that it was irreverent and it was a joke. But there were some people that got really upset. And the question, we have a social media question every show, and we give a prize at the end of the show because we ask people to go on Facebook and Twitter and answer this question. And they're usually fun questions. What would you bring on a deserted island and blah, blah, blah. Well, the question was, if you were a serial killer, who would your first 3 victims be?
Wow.
Now, we had 20 comments And people were, making jokes. They understood that it was irreverent. Mm-hmm. We did have some folks get very, very upset. And they actually started calling our sponsors and cussing our sponsors out and threatening them. And so, we pulled the post down. And
yeah, but to me, if I'm listening to a radio show where the guys are talking about, hey, if we could go out and kill 3 people, would you really want to piss these people off? I mean, at any point did you ever go, and if you are the next caller, you could be on the list too?
We thought it was fun. I think most of the listeners thought it was fun. There were a few folks that thought it was in bad taste. And as well as I do, when you're on TV and you're on radio, especially when you're having a good time and throwing things out there, there's always somebody that's going to get upset with what you say. And we try to say that the answer is there's 17 different radio stations on Maui. You could change the station. Some folks don't accept that. Some folks just want to track you down and hound you. And
yeah, but in your mind, this is all fun. This is all things that as adults we should be able to laugh and kind of commiserate over.
Sure.
But from time to time, do you ever just go, God, what am I doing here? I'm just going to go be a tour guide.
On the air, I don't. Well, as I told you, on the air is a hobby for me. So I don't look at it as I'm going into work. I don't look at it as a job. It's only once a week for 3 hours. So I'm having fun on the air. Mm-hmm. And even when things come up that are challenges, no, I never say, screw this, I don't want to do this anymore. There's shows where the show ends and I'm happy it's over because I'm tired. Hosting a show for 3 hours can be a little exhausting when it's nothing but talk, but it's always fun.
Yeah, and the thing is like, I'm going to tell you, just for your own information, when you make the jump from radio to TV, you'll spend 3 hours on the radio. No, you will spend 9 hours prepping a studio and television for a 1 hour show. So by the time this show rolls around, I'm just like,
oh, bet.
But I'm glad you're here because in just a sec, I've got a segment, and you've got to tell me if you've heard anything about this segment. It's called How Dumb is America?
I think I've seen something about this on Facebook.
Oh, yeah. Well, today I've got a doozy one. See, yesterday I had this How Dumb is America thing that dumbly got cut off because I didn't set something right up. So I was a victim of my own dumbness. But, 2 minutes here. If I had to ask you, because you're a person that reads constantly, researches constantly for your own show, if I had to say, name one of the dumbest things you think about right now that we do in this country, what would it be?
Most of the people that jump up and down and scream about how America is the greatest country on the planet because of our freedom and all this, they're usually people that have never left the country. Mm. And I don't know if people care, but for Americans to just jump up and down and swear about how this is the greatest country on earth, I mean, there wasn't a pageant. I mean, do you know how that makes people feel? Do you know how it makes us look? I mean, I realize we're a great country. I love my country. I'd give my life for my country. Mm-hmm. But it's just, I've seen Americans sometimes overseas talk to people like they're servants or like they're lower than Americans are. I've seen it in Asia. I've seen Americans doing it in Europe, and it's just ugly and dumb.
Wow.
Like, why don't you just be a citizen of the planet, and why don't you be gracious instead of going over there and ordering people around? That's why we're hated in some places, because of the way Americans act.
Yeah, and I mean, it is that simple, is you just be polite from time to time, for God's sakes.
It's one thing to love your country. It's another thing to throw it in people's face that you're better than them for some reason.
It's like dating a model, isn't it? There's only so much that your friends will put up with hearing about before you're ending up in a trunk somewhere.
That's right. I don't know. I've never dated models. You can tell me how that is.
I wouldn't know. I married one. Well, look, after the break, I kind of want to talk about your side business, too, because, one, I have a big love of science, and it seems like your new side thing is right up our alley, and we'll talk about some of the things in that. Plus, just cover some of the other crazy random stuff and give a plug out for the show, because why not?
Sure.
All right. For everybody else, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break, and in this quick break is going to be something cool. Not the radar. The radar is very cool. Sarah's got that in just a sec. I've got your How Dumb is America. That's coming up in a sec. But for something truly, truly cool, you've got to watch this next little segment, because in it, there's going to be a trivia question that can win you some free stuff for tomorrow. And tomorrow is a big national. Look, you know what? I'm not going to waste it. I'm not going to even ruin it for you. Stick around. Watch it. It's happening. Just a second, okay? And stay close, because in, I don't know, what, 3, 4, 5, 15 minutes, we're going to be back here with Johnny A at 88.5 and Akaku, Channel 55.
Hi, I'm Sarah Rodriguez with On the Radar. Don't cue the Jaws theme song just yet. In Chatham, Massachusetts, cha-ching is more appropriate. People are flocking to the classy Cape Cod town thanks to an increase in white shark sightings, and local businesses are making lots of money off the phenomenon. T-shirts, hoodies, belts, hats, dog collars, jewelry, candy, even stuffed animals. If you can stick a shark on it, Chatham business people will make it and sell it to tourists for $10 to $45. Thanks to the man-eating fish, one businessman claims a 500% increase in shark souvenir sales. 20 or more shark sightings a year have been reported in the past few years. Before 2004, that number was typically fewer than 2. But unlike Jaws, which is playing, of course, at local theaters, these sharks aren't coming to Cape Cod to eat people, just gray seals. The tourists flock to see said seals on the boat tours in the hopes of seeing a shark too. White sharks are this iconic species in society, and it draws amazing amounts of attention, says one expert. Though the sharks aren't seen as a big threat to Cape Cod tourists, the Chamber of Commerce is urging some common sense. If people go to the beach and they see a family of seals there, it's probably not the best place to hang out, says the CEO. There are several different ways you can get fired from Starbucks, according to Business Insider. Organizing a union, selling leftover coffee on eBay, not letting your customers surf the internet for adult content, or just having a tattoo. A 27-year-old Michigan barista, identified simply as Kayla, tells Fox 2 Detroit that she had a tiny heart tattoo on her hand when she started working at Starbucks 5 years ago. She claims that no one brought it up during her interview or afterward, and she doesn't remember the policy being mentioned. But now she says Starbucks management has given her 30 days to get rid of it, or she'll be fired. The Starbucks rule was apparently always been on the books, if not strictly or consistently enforced. And Kayla says she masked the heart tattoo, which is the size of a penny and that can be subtly covered up by her thumb, with makeup that she leaves at work. Starbucks seems unmoved by her concealment efforts in a statement sent to Fox 2 Detroit that says, "Our tattoo policy states that employees cannot have visible tattoos. This is part of our dress code policy and is discussed with our candidates during the interview process." Kayla doesn't understand why they're making such a big deal out of her ink, especially because she's a conscientious employee who is vocal in telling others that Starbucks is an amazing place to work. It's a little heart, she says. It's not offensive to anybody. A veteran who says he came home from Iraq with post-traumatic stress disorder and a major back injury is worried about losing his 14 ducks he has come to rely on. Darren Walker, 36, says the village of West Lafayette, Ohio, has ordered him to get rid of the ducks even though he has a letter from the Department of Veterans Affairs Mental Health Department recommending he be allowed to keep them. He acquired the ducks earlier this year and keeps them in a penned-in part of his backyard, complete with kiddie pools for them to swim in. Welker, who served in the Army National Guard in 2005, says the ducks help him deal with depression and keep him active. Taking care of them is both mental and physical therapy. Watching them keeps you entertained for hours at a time, he says. The municipality banned the keeping of fowl or other farm animals years ago, though exceptions have been made for pot-bellied pigs. Welker was cited last month for failing to get rid of the ducks, and he could face a $150 fine when he appears in the court this week. He says he plans to explain to the judge how much the ducks have helped him. And I'm Sarah Rodriguez with On the Radar.
Hey, it's Shaggy. Now, I thought today would be kind of a fun time to do something cool. The reason why is that tomorrow is a national holiday for one of the things that we Americans love most. If you don't know what I'm talking about, real quick,
Watch this.
Now you may have heard or seen in your dreams a magical place called the Land of Ice Cream. I know it exists, and I'm happy to say that that's where our story will begin on this day. Where there are no factories to blow smoke in the skies, no machines to calculate the how, what, or whys. Because ice cream is silly, it's sweet, and it's fun. And so is the land that ice cream comes from.
Okay, did you get what I was talking about? Oh, ice cream, it's great. Now, one of the most exquisite ice creams, vanilla ice cream, which is the #1 ice cream in the United States of America, is having a little bit of a holiday tomorrow. And if you would like to win some free ice cream, this is what you do. Now, recently, one ice cream business here on the island was given a prestigious award. As a matter of fact, out of the top 10 ice cream brands in the world, only one was selected from Hawaii, and we are so lucky to have it here on Maui. If you know which ice cream shop I'm talking about, email your answer in to us today at live@akaku.org. That's live@akaku.org. Correct answers, I'll give you a gift certificate in your email that you can use tomorrow for some free ice cream. Not too shabby. And real quick, I know this isn't a dumb segment, but let's talk about something dumb. Did you know that the word vanilla kind of means bland, boring, or tasteless? However, the actual bean takes up to 7 years to cultivate, and this includes hand rotations in sun done by, well, carefully skilled artisans that are generational in this whole vanilla bean thing. Not only is it one of the most complex of the spices to harvest, it's also the one that's the most palatable and combines with the most other food combinations, both in desserts and main course. So before you call something boring vanilla, think about it. And think about our trivia question, because it could win you some free ice cream. If you know the one company on Maui that scored a top 10 best ice cream in the world award recently, email your answer live@akaku.org, and if you're correct, check your email and I'll send you some free ice cream. Until tomorrow, have a very exciting, I know it's a vanilla day, but it's a very exciting vanilla day tomorrow. Hey, it's Shaggy, back with another How Dumb is America segment, where today we tackle the public education system and how every day there's some teachers leading America's charge into dumbness. Now look, it's no secret that every job has that one person that, shall we say, doesn't do everything they could to be truly productive. Whether it's the guy picking his nose in the cubicle all day, or like Peter, half-asses our coffee every morning, some people don't really pull their weight. That's what President Bush thought in 2001 about teachers in public schools when he signed into law the No Child Left Behind Act. Now, besides sounding like some sort of movie Michael Bay has pitched to Hollywood as a gritty reboot of the Magic School Bus, the No Child Left Behind Act supports standards-based education reform based on the premise that setting a high standard and establishing a measurable goal can improve individual outcomes in education. Now, hilarity resulted as many Americans realized that some teachers, rather than being the bastions of knowledge that the U.S. government now mandated them to be, turned out to be dumber than their own students. In May of 2006, this letter went viral, depicting the struggles of a teacher with a student that simply refused to be corrected because the teacher was an idiot. The teacher, one Adam Hilliker, said the following: Alex consistently defied me. During class, he contradicted me numerous times when I insisted the length of 1 kilometer was greater than that of 1 mile. Every other student in the class accepted my lesson without argument, but your son refused to believe what I told him. Now, although he was correct, Alex's actions show a blatant disregard for authority and a complete lack of respect for his school. In the future, Alex would be better off simply accepting my teachings without resistance. Yikes. Now, the thing is, a lot of people believe that letter was a fake. From the name Adam Hilliker, that some people thought was a name like Adolf Hitler? And the date of April 20th, which is Hitler's birthday, most Americans took this as a simple case of someone being clever on the internet. Truth is, despite this particular letter being a fake, that doesn't stop the hundreds of real ones, like this little gem from a high school teacher not knowing that there's other software available for browsing the internet. Today in class, blank had a program launched called foxfire.exe. It's Firefox, by the way. I had told blank to close the program and to resume work, but he told me it was just a different browser and that he was doing his work. I'd given him 2 warnings, but he insisted that it was just a, quote, better browser and he wasn't doing anything wrong. I had then issued his detention. Oh boy. Kind of makes you wonder what would happen if the student had a Mac and opened up Safari. Or what about this one? It comes to us from a boys' high school in New Zealand where the teacher gave a student detention for an unhealthy smell in class. Now, of course, the teacher asked the student about it, and the student says, hey, it's natural to fart. Why should I get 10 demerit points for a natural body function and ask if the issue was resolved? The student said, yeah, because the smell disseminated. You see, that's kind of what happens when you let a fart in a room. After a while, it'll make its way out. But the saddest one is this one. It comes to us from Redmond Junior High, where the student, Dalton, made a little comment. Here's the reason for detention. Another student made the comment that you need to push it in further, which was an innocent comment, and Dalton added, quote, that's what she said. Of course, they were given detention. Now, before you think this is another case of a class clown getting a simple scolding, let's all take a moment to consider that back in 2011, 2 University of Washington researchers decided to put their coding skills to the test and develop a computer program that can identify whether a seemingly benign sentence might turn risque if you add on, that's what she said. Because when you have the worlds of science, math, and higher human thought to conquer, what you really want to do is piss away a few $100,000 programming a computer to be an annoying frat boy after a few light beers. Because who needs to cure cancer, right? Now this brings us back to our point that enforcing a standard doesn't mean you're raising expectations. It really means you're setting the bar low enough so that the results match the requirements of the law. You're seeking to have people spit back factoids versus actually teaching skills. Now, if you think I'm alone in this, here's a quote from a guy that knocked an entire planet out of science. From Neil deGrasse Tyson. When students cheat on exams, it's because our school system values grades more than students value learning. Pretty accurate and pretty dumb, huh? Well, that's it for today. Join me next time when we delve once again into the murky waters of dumbness in America.
FM and watching us live here on cable channel 55. If you just caught the something cool thing, Johnny, if I ask you, do you know right off the top of your head what shall we say company got a worldwide top 10 list for ice cream? If I had to say, do you know the top 10 ice creams in the world? One of them lives here on Maui. Who is it? Do you know?
Lived here on Maui?
No. It does live here on Maui. One of the top ice creams in the entire world exists here on Maui.
No.
Wow. Well, okay, if anybody knows the answer, live at akaku.org. But I was totally going to hook you up. I was like, Johnny knows this.
Ice cream here in Maui? Rosalani?
No, it's not them. Sorry.
Ben & Jerry's would be nice, but they're in Vermont.
And anytime you were traveling through there, you said you lived in Maryland, did you ever just go, you know what, guys, I got some Marine training behind me. Let's go take out Ben & Jerry's.
No. If Ben & Jerry's had a factory here, I'd work there. Oh, screw the radio.
Are you kidding me? I would be right beside you. This is a great job, Johnny.
I'm an ice creamaholic, man. If I go shopping for ice cream, I only buy exactly what I'm intending to eat. Because if I buy a gallon of ice cream,
it's gone.
I'll eat that gallon of ice cream sometimes in one sitting. I'll eat ice cream till I get sick.
Oh my God. Me and you totally have this ice cream addiction in common.
That's why Ben & Jerry's is perfect, a pint at a time. But just buy one pint.
Yeah. the thing is, though, is I can't. They have too many flavors. If it was Ben & Jerry's Ultimate Ice Cream Flavor 1, it would be easy. But there is so many things, and I'm a guy, so I don't care how I look at the end of the day. I'm just ice cream. Like, what's the one that you just cannot stop eating, though? If I were to put down a tub of ice cream right now, what flavor would have you just, no, show's over, I'm eating this?
Ben & Jerry's fish food.
Fish food?
Mm-hmm.
I've never had fish food.
You haven't lived, Shag. Go to Safeway and get some fish food and call me tonight and say, Johnny, this is wonderful.
You know, I am going to do that.
Yeah.
Because me and the wife are hanging out tonight. So well, actually, she's on a diet. So if I bring her home ice cream, she will kill me.
Speaking of wives, I married this beautiful girl recently, Caroline, and her thing is sampling. So if we go to a restaurant, she'll say, let's get 8 appetizers and we'll sample. Well, sometimes she'll come home from Safeway with 8 different types of Ben & Jerry. And I'll say, honey, you're not supposed to do this. And Johnny will make himself sick.
Can I ask a question? Do you have good life insurance? Because this might be a part of a plot.
It might be. Right.
She knows. She's watching this show right now going, he has an uncontrollable ice cream lust. I think I found a way out of this.
Well, she's an ice creamaholic like I am. And, we have a deal where we're only supposed to get a pint at a time. But sometimes she goes to the store and she's like you said. She's like, I see all these different flavors. Mm-hmm. And what she likes to do is she likes to have a couple spoonfuls of this, a couple spoonfuls of that. Whereas me, for whatever reason, psychologically, I'm more like, this is my pint, and I'm going to eat this pint till it's gone, and then maybe I'll start this pint. But I don't really sample. I just attack one pint until it's gone.
I'm thinking this might be a part of your Marine training.
Perhaps it is. Task-oriented. That's what the Marine Corps is task-oriented.
Yeah, this is divide and conquer. The chocolate cannot help the vanilla if the chocolate's not there anymore.
No. So once I rip off the plastic and the cap comes off, that's my target.
I know that when I met my wife, we have different quirks. Luckily, food isn't one of those. We are simpatico. We love to eat, and that is all. But for you, it seems like your marriage is, you're finding yourself now at the buffet bar when you're really a single task person. Would you say that the sampling thing has been the weirdest adjustment in married life? Because we kind of went through this at around the same time.
Well, no, there hasn't been much of an adjustment at all to married life. This is my 3rd marriage, and the first 2 were disasters, as was every relationship before that. Mm-hmm. But with Caroline, it's a very easy thing. After the second divorce, I was committed to being single for the rest of my life and looking forward to it. Some people get anxiety about being single. I was like, I can't wait to be single. And then Caroline dropped into my life, and it was just like, we never fight. We like the same things. We like the same movies, basically like the same foods. We don't give each other a hard time about anything. So eventually I was like, all right, well, let's do this again. And there has been a transition. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, it's been a transition of, I no longer need to feel guilty about doing these things with you. That's the only transition, Because when you're dating, there's certain lines that you're just like, ooh, is this safe? Is this safe? And you're married, you're like, no, you're committed. We're doing this.
What can I say? I found the right one.
Yeah. What's the weirdest thing you've talked her into doing so far? Besides marriage.
The weirdest thing that I've talked her into doing?
Yeah.
What a great question. Well,
Now remember, this is a kids program.
She's the producer on my radio show, and we host the show together.
And that's an interesting dynamic to me, because usually when you have like people engineering your shows, like for me, I have a cavalcade. Tonight, Joel Agnew is operating the show.
Great guy.
Job.
I love the Joel.
Oh, are you kidding me? I've got the Reverend of Rock and Roll running the board. Right now, I can go to somebody and say, I'm friends with Alice Cooper, and the Reverend of Rock and Roll runs my controls. How awesome is this?
Yeah.
But, with you guys, it does seem to be like this weird kind of dynamic where during the show, if I'm listening, it seems like there's like almost a puppeteer happening. And you're saying that this is Carolyn's like influence of keeping everything almost centered in your mind, huh?
Well, first of all, the radio shows were always actually sort of an escape from relationships, from marriages and girlfriends. It wasn't. It was just something that I would do on my own, and I didn't really, I didn't really have a desire to have the woman that I was involved with on the air with me. But with Caroline, she's such a natural. She was a sports anchor in Canada for basically the Canadian ESPN.
Great voice.
Score. Great voice, and she's a professional. And like I said, we're simpatico on the way we think. So it's just natural to do the show with her. We have a great time. Now, on the radio show, we don't talk about how we're married. In fact, we kind of play up that we're not married and I'm flirting with her. So for A-Train fans, we've just let the cat out of the bag. Kara and I are married.
It's okay, though, because from what I understand of A-Train fans, by the time the next show runs around, they'll have forgotten.
Yes, absolutely. Or they're behind bars.
Oh, well, that's lovely, I guess. And that is one of the funny things is you have listeners from all walks of life, all ages. I know young kids that say, oh, I listen to Johnny A, as well as guys well senior of me and you. It's just like, man, that Johnny A, it's kind of funny. For you, who do you really, when you do the show, who are you doing your show for?
For myself.
Really?
Well, when you say who you're doing
it for,
I
love
love how
just easy that was. It's like I was doing it for myself. Next question.
Well, I mentioned how it's a hobby.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'm literally doing the radio shows to have fun.
Well, can I ask something? Because we've got like 10 minutes left in the show. And you do things for fun. You do a radio show for fun. How did you end up with solar?
Good question. Haleakala Solar, which is basically the Cadillac of solar companies on the island, was my radio client. They were buying advertising from me.
Yeah, but this is the thing, because I've been a lot of times in the studio, somebody comes in, hey, man, I got a product. Let me give you a little bit. Hey, and they smooth and they do stuff like that. And usually you take everything with a grain of salt. You're, okay, whatever. But for you, this is something that actually interested you. What made you interested in solar power of all things?
I became interested because as I saw the product and saw the reasons why people are putting photovoltaic panels on their roof, I realized it's a product that no sane, intelligent person would ever say no to. And I haven't gotten one no.
Wow.
I've never had a sales job where that was so easy. But why would you pay MECO what they're charging? MECO charges the highest for electricity of any county in the nation. Maui, people on Maui pay more for electric than any one of the 300 million people in this country. We pay the most, gas and electric. So when I go out and I show people the facts about how Haleakala Solar has been around 37 years, and there's folks that are paying $0 a month. Actually, it's an $18 a month service charge you pay.
So this was something that was spurred on by a subject that you had on the show, because you guys talk about energy, finances, government, and things like that. So you were having these conversations, and one day you're going, wow, I actually do have an interest in this. And what made you go, okay, besides just being interested in it, I'm going to go work?
I know the owner of the company. I know the director. And like I said, I realized that everyone on this island wants to get it, both commercial and residential owners of buildings and properties. And it's also, Shaggy, it's really a nice deal to go sit in someone's home and finalize the deal and realize that I just took a family off depending on dirty energy, on oil and so forth. And I got them to invest in clean energy. They're going to save thousands of dollars a year on their electric bills.
Yeah. And this is a subject that's been on your show as a political issue. Would you say, because we are in a midterm year, usually people are like, oh, midterm elections, they're not as big as the regular elections. All elections are big. But here we are in the midterm. Would you say that energy is something that you look into when you're thinking of candidates? Because a lot of candidates, they don't approach this green energy idea at all.
Are you talking about local candidates or national?
I am talking about local, because national candidates, let's just be honest, they don't care about us. we don't really too much care about them. Local politicians, though, that do have a lot of the influence of whether or not we are allowed as a county and as an island to go more into a greener, more eco-friendly environment direction, or if we're just going to, rigmarole, same old, same old. Do you think this is an issue that people really need to think about at the end of the day, is where does our energy come from?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're living right by the equator. The sun is 3 times stronger here than anywhere on the mainland, which means you can reap more energy from the sun here. We're paying more for energy than anyone else, more for gasoline, more for electricity. I'm getting solar panels on my home this month, the end of the month. My wife and I are getting electric cars, and we're not going to pay the oil companies for gas anymore.
Yeah. And this is stuff that I guess, and I've heard this on your shows, that's why I keep bringing this up, that a lot of people don't understand that this is something that we can talk to county people about.
Absolutely.
It's county buildings, county parks, buses, and things like that. But going forward, and we're right here at the end of the show, but I've always wanted to do one of these shows where we get to actually talk about things that we like, and this is one of the ones that I like, is issues. Going forward in this country, do you think it's now time that America actually wakes up and says, where's the energy coming from? How are we producing it into the future? And what consequences are we going to have producing energy going future?
Yes, I absolutely do. And it's discouraging that the oil companies have so much money. Basically, they pay these lobbyists, and I'm sure we all assume that they also pay off a few politicians, and they influence people to think that we need to drill more oil and build more pipelines when this is a finite resource that's running out. I mean, the nation of Germany gets 25% of its power today from solar. They have a plan to eliminate all nuclear power plants in the next 18 years. Germany.
Yeah.
And this is what we should be doing. And we're doing it painfully slowly because of oil money, because of the lobby, because paying off politicians to say, no, we need to drill. We need to drill more oil. We need to build pipelines. These things aren't going to help us into the future. No way. We need to change our source of energy.
And a lot of the way that we start doing that is through little tiny steps. Residents saying, maybe I want to live a little off the grid. Counties coming up and saying, maybe I want to make sure that my public transit is cleaner.
The good news about the government and clean energy is this. If you get solar panels on your roof, or the technical term is photovoltaic energy, if you get those things today, the federal government will pay for 30% of the price. The state of Hawaii will pay for 35%. The governments are actually chipping in for over half of your investment in the form of tax credits.
So in your mind, that's a good. That's saying the government believes in green energy.
Fantastic. And the government knows what's coming.
Wow. And you think that green energy is right on the corner? We're right at the cusp of it.
Yeah. Fossil fuels are running out, man. Prices are going up and are never going to come down. You're never going to see gasoline on Maui at $2 a gallon again. You're not going to see it.
Yikes.
So the sooner you can get photovoltaic panels on your roof and get an electric car in your garage, then you can stop paying for gasoline.
There you go. Well, that's the end of the show. And God, thank you so much for coming in here. Like I said, one day I want to have you back on the show where we can just rip through issues.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Oh, God. And you know what? Invite the crazies, too. We'll get more cameras, more mics, and everything. Oh, God. But real quick, your show is on what time and place?
It's on 96.7 FM and 1110 AM. It's a simulcast station. And it's on from 3 to 6 p.m. every Friday.
Wow. And this week, any special guests or anything we should know about?
I don't usually plan the shows till a day or two before the show.
So, Carolyn, if you're watching, hubby needs some help. And I guess people can find you on Facebook and all of that fun stuff. Okay. Well,
the A-Train Maui is our site. So if you're interested in the show, the A-Train Maui has some information. And tune us in. We have a good time.
Okay. Well, for everybody, thanks for joining us. Johnny, thanks for coming in.
Thank you,
sir. For Joel working the controls tonight.
Good job, Joel.
Great job, Joel. Tomorrow we are going to... hopefully have a guest. I haven't got anybody planned for tomorrow. I'm going to be just a little honest here. Today, busy. But tomorrow, we'll be back for another show, another How Dumb is America, that you can catch on my Facebook page, through the Akaku website at akaku.org and all of that. Thanks for listening. 88.5 FM, and of course, channel 55 on Akaku. And if you like the show, and remember that trivia question? Live at akaku.org. If you have an answer for what company on Maui recently got a world recognition in the field of ice cream, live at akaku.org, you send that to me. I'll send you a free gift certificate. Also, later on in the week, we've got a great function from the kids over in the AIM program. They're going to be live at First Friday